All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to completely dismantle the watered-down modern concept of holiness. You know the one, where it basically just equates to being a good person. Instead, we're rebuilding it from the ground up using ancient biblical texts, specifically looking through the eyes of the prophet Habakkuk.
You see, we often think of holiness as this pretentious, exclusive club reserved for the ultra-religious. Kind of a holier-than-thou barrier, right? But what if it's actually a dynamic, awe-inspiring, and frankly, kind of terrifying cosmic force?
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the ancient Hebrew word for holiness, kadosh. It literally means to be set apart or cut off from the ordinary. And this definition completely shifts the paradigm. We aren't just talking about simple moral perfection anymore. We're talking about absolute transcendence. Section 1. Transcendence and moral purity. In the ancient world, God's holiness wasn't just a single trait. It was defined by two primary, overwhelming dimensions.
The first is transcendence. The crucial point here is that God isn't just, a bigger, stronger, or better human. He exists in a completely different category of being. He's uncreated, while absolutely everything else in the universe is created. He is entirely and fundamentally wholly other. To really grasp this huge ontological divide, just think about the Earth versus the sun. The Earth is created, it's ordinary, it's approachable. But the sun? It isn't just a brighter Earth. It's an entirely different kind of matter. You can enjoy its light from millions of miles away, but if you try to approach it on your own terms, it will absolutely consume you. And that is exactly how the ancient prophets viewed God's transcendent holiness, as this heavy weight of glory that's just completely overwhelming to our finite human minds.
And that brings us to the second dimension, moral purity. Think of this literally like a spiritual immune system. Imagine a completely sterile environment. It simply cannot coexist with bacteria, right? By its very nature, God's holy presence reacts against injustice and sin. It doesn't just dislike evil, it is fundamentally incompatible with it.
The prophet Habakkuk, he understood this ethical rule perfectly. In chapter 1, verse 13, he declares, "Your eyes are too pure to look on evil, you cannot tolerate wrongdoing." Habakkuk knew that this holy fire purifies the good, but it absolutely burns away the bad.
But hold on, because this leads us to a massive, mind-bending dilemma. If God is this consuming, purifying fire, completely intolerant of evil, why on earth did he use the deeply unholy, violent Babylonians to enact his judgment on Judah? To Habakkuk, God using these unclean empires felt exactly like trying to wash a pristine silk robe with a bucket of raw sewage. I mean, it made zero sense. Yet the powerful answer he eventually gets is that God's holiness is so absolute and so sovereign that he can actually use the darkness to serve the light. He uses them to set things right, and because he is perfectly holy, he will eventually judge that very darkness too.
Section 2. Purpose, protection, and power. Now that we're thoroughly awestruck by this concept of a consuming fire, let's bring it back down to earth and see how humans are actually supposed to interact with it.
For us humans, holiness is not some trophy to be earned. It's a highly practical state of alignment. What's its purpose? Well, to mirror God's nature and create a sacred space. Why keep it? It acts as vital spiritual hygiene, giving us moral clarity and safety from the decay of sin. And who keeps it? Anyone who belongs to God. It's an open invitation for anyone to be set apart.
This brings up a super important modern distinction: status-based holiness versus character-based holiness. If you treat holiness as just a status, an exclusive club where you're in and everyone else is out, it inevitably leads to legalism and blinding pride. That was exactly the mistake of the leaders in Habakkuk's day. But if you treat it as character-based holiness, it becomes a moral responsibility. It leads to humility, service, and ultimately, it creates a really healthy, just society. This all culminates in that famous truth from Habakkuk 2:4, "The just shall live by his faith." Habakkuk realized that even if the entire society around you forgets their purpose and falls into chaotic corruption, you, the individual, still have a personal responsibility. You have to maintain your personal integrity, remain set apart, and actively choose to trust God's timing over your own impulses. Section 3. The thrice holy cosmic cry. Let's peel back the final layer and move from earthly responsibility to the ultimate cosmic expression of this whole reality. It all centers around an ancient word, trishagion. It comes from the ancient Greek words tris, meaning thrice, and hagios, meaning holy. Literally, thrice holy. In the biblical narrative, this is the absolute peak verbal expression of God's perfection.
This perfectly breaks down the ancient Hebrew rule of three. You see, they didn't really have punctuation marks like exclamation points or words like holiest. To emphasize something, they repeated it. Step 1, a single word, was normal. Step 2, a double repetition, added heavy emphasis, like when Jesus would say, truly, truly. But step 3, a triple repetition, that represented the absolute superlative, literally the highest possible degree of anything. So the crucial takeaway here is absolutely staggering. Think about this. In the entire Hebrew Bible, no other attribute of God is ever repeated 3 times in a row. He is never called love, 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 or just. He is uniquely and exclusively called holy, holy, holy. This means holiness isn't just one trait among many on a laundry list. It's the ultimate defining characteristic that completely blankets all his other attributes. His love is a holy love. His justice is a holy justice.
This absolute superlative is exactly why the fiery seraphim in the prophet Isaiah's famous heavenly vision unceasingly cry out, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory." And here is the absolute most beautiful part about that heavenly scene. This is an unceasing reaction to an infinite God. Those angels aren't forced to sing this like some robotic choir. Because they dwell in his immediate presence, every single time they turn to look at him, they see a completely new, mind-blowing facet of his infinite purity and beauty. The only response their minds can possibly formulate is to spontaneously cry out, "Holy," all over again.
But hey, we aren't left out of this cosmic loop. While the angels started this Trishagion in heaven as an act of continuous revelation, we humans are actually invited to join it right here on Earth as a humble response. Through the ancient liturgical hymn of the Orthodox Church and the Sanctus of the Western Church, humans get to sync their earthly voices with this eternal, ongoing heavenly broadcast. And when we do this, when we acknowledge that we must align our lives with his purity, the veil between heaven and earth becomes incredibly, beautifully thin. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a challenge. Does the societal pressure to be perfect make holiness feel like an exclusive club meant only for a select few? Or, armed with this deeper understanding, are you ready to embrace it as a daily, character-building responsibility and a direct, cosmic connection to the creator of the universe?